Hello there viewers, welcome to another video, and today I am going to do a mono green aggro deck review, or just a deck profile. So in here is the mono green aggro deck. Whoops, these are just the extra sleeves I keep in there just in case anything happens to my normal ones. I keep the side deck in these special clear, well they're not really special, they're just clear cases. But the main deck, I'll go over this after I go over the main deck. The main deck consists of one treetop village. I only run one because honestly there isn't a need to have creatures out, because this is an aggro deck, so you will get creatures out really fast. The highest mana cost in here is 3, and that's honestly that's very low. Next, I run 17 forests for a total of 18 lands. With this aggro deck, you honestly don't need them. Like I said, the highest mana cost of the cards in here is 3, so you honestly won't need too much lands in this deck. I mean, you can consider side decking like maybe 4 at most, but in my side deck, I do not run extra forests. I also run 4 experiment ones. Now these guys, they are very overpowered, because, well, they're not really overpowered. They're just very powerful. They have evolve, which is an amazing mechanic to have, and they have regenerate. So with evolve, you just put 1/1 counters on them with the your creatures, and being an aggro deck, you're gonna get a lot of 1/1 counters on this thing by far. So you have enough 1/1 counters to regenerate and still have like powerful plays. But four of these also means 4 1-drops, so that is one of the main reasons why I run experiment 1. Next, we have 4 Dryad Militants for a total of 8 1-drops in this deck. These guys, if you're playing against a blue deck, they're good to have in your deck, because they're gonna be recycling their spells, instances, and sorceries just like crazy. Especially against Jace decks, this will stop them in their tracks. Plus, if you since there's a 1-drop, you can always play this immediately. After you play experiment 1, make it evolve, and have it become a 2/2. So definitely put those in there. Next, I run 4 Strangleroot Geists. Now these guys, they're kind of like kamikazes when they first come out. They only cost 2 mana, and while the converted cost may be 2, the devotion to green is 2. So you might not want to run this in like a green blue deck, or just like a dual color deck. Only play this in a monocolor deck, which is probably why it's so powerful for its converted mana cost of 2. But it has haste, it does 2 damage, and early on in the game, that's going to take creatures out, okay? It also has Undying, so when you do play it, let's say you play this, and you already had an Experiment 1 out, that evolves into a 2/2, okay? You kamikaze it, you use its haste ability, attack immediately, it gets destroyed, comes back on the field as a 3/2. Then that means your Experiment 1, which is already a 2/2, evolves into a 3/3. There we go. That's already enough to play, already enough to regenerate it by the second turn. And this happens more often than not. This powerful combination happens more often than not. Next, I run 2 Colonian Tusks, a 3/3 for a converted mana cost of 2. That is extremely broken in a sense. Not much else to say about that. Next is Avatar of the Resolute. I run 4 copies of this. It's a 3/2 with Reach and Trample. Now you can combo this with cards like Tangle Snap, but we'll get to that later. But this card is very important. Do not take out a copy of this unless you plan on adding in another flying defense, because this is your only flying defense. All right, no other cards in here have flying or reach, only these. So be careful if you're going to take these out. Plus, they also come in with 1/1 counters, depending on how many 1/1 counters you already have on creatures, which will be a lot. I don't know if you guys can already tell. There's Strangleroot Geist and Experiment 1. So this will usually come in at around like a 5/4. In my experience, that's what it normally comes around. I once had it as an 8/7, so that definitely washed out the competition immediately. But yes, this is your only flying defense, so do not take it out ever unless you plan on adding a better flying defense in there. Next, I run 2 Scavenging Oozes, and I believe I do have one in my side deck. But this is just, just in case, your Dryad Militants get taken out, because they usually do. They only have a toughness of 1, so they're not that hard to take out. So yeah, it only costs one green mana to make it a 3/3 and gain 1 life. So for a 2-drop, this is pretty good, but it's not. I honestly don't see it as that good, so that's why I only run 2 copies of it. Next, I run 4 Dungrove Elders. Now this is pretty good because going against an aggro red deck, they're going to use a lot of lightning strikes, open fire, stuff like that. So hexproof, that is amazing. Plus its toughness and power is equal to how many forests you control. Treetop Village might not count as 1, but hey, that's only 1 mana. Okay, all the rest are forests, so this can usually, well, in my experience, it gets to a 3/3, but that's honestly all you need, considering this deck is so overpowered. You can just lay back and play defensive for a while, block with several creatures, and this guy is pretty good. Okay, so now you can maybe side deck this with by taking 1 or 2 at most out, but you gotta keep at least 2 in here, in my opinion. Next, the highest cost we have in this deck, the Leatherback Baloth. I run 4 of these. It's a 3 converted, and it's a 4/5. Obviously, you can see why I run 4 copies of this. It is broken. It is broken. I will say that, and it gives you your Devotion to Green a +3, which I will get to the card later. All right. So next I run 2 Rankers in here. Rankers are probably the most broken card I know. All right. It's 1. It's converted is 1. Okay. The enchant creature gets +2/+0. So that's and trample. So that's just like kamikaze right there. And when Ranker would be sent to the graveyard from the field, you will put it back in your hand to use again, and you will use this again next turn because it's only a 1 cost and it gives your creature +2, which might not sound like a lot, but trust me, it will make a difference. All right, that's now I do side deck 1 in here. 1 in this deck, so you might want to do that. Maybe have 3 Rankers or maybe even 4, but Ranker is very broken. Next, I run 1 copy of Tangle Snap in here. This is why you could chain it with Avatar of the Resolute. Plus, if the creature is equipped with Ranker, you can just have Trample, so it will still deal damage. Now, this might not work against another green deck because greens usually have a lot of Trample, but if any of the colors, they usually don't have Trample, so this is a good card to play. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but this deck tries to have an even balance of defense of the different mechanics. We have Rapid Vigor, which is regenerate each creature you control. Building up an army with this deck, you will do that very often. And sometimes there might be a massacre, maybe even like, somebody plays a Day of Judgment on you. Just Rapid Vigor and you'll be okay. Next, I run 4 Aspect of the Hydra. Now, this is why I said you want your Devotion to Green very high, because target creature gets X until the end of turn, where X is your Devotion to Green. Leatherback Baloth. Okay, if you play Aspect of Hydra on that, and Leatherback Baloth is the only creature you have out, so that's automatically a 7/8. That is very, very amazing. I know it's only a 1 cost too. So, and usually you will have more creatures out than Leatherback Baloth. So it's broken in this deck, but I'm not sure about other decks. Now I'm gonna use the term broken a lot because I do see this deck as very broken. Next, I run 2 copies of Mutagenic Growth. You can I forgot what this mechanic is called, but I like it because you can either pay 2 life or just pay a forest, which you usually will be able to pay a forest instead of 2 life, but if need be, that's fine. And then finally for the main deck, I run 4 copies of Vines of Vastwood. Now, this is another very broken card because it essentially gives your creatures the abilities of hexproof, but it doesn't give them hexproof itself. So with cards like a card that I run in my side deck, which I will get to later, the ability of hexproof won't get taken away because they don't have hexproof. They just have the abilities of hexproof. Plus, if you pay the kicker cost, which is only 1 more green mana, they not only get the powers of hexproof, they will also get +4/+4 until the end of the turn. That is just broken. Obviously, it is obviously broken for obvious reasons. So, onto the side deck. Now, the side deck is a full 15 card side deck. I run enchantment defense in there just in case you go up against like maybe a golem deck, but it's got a lot of other defenses in there, which you will need to side deck if you go against certain mechanic kind of decks. 1 ranker in here. Yeah, just to get maybe increases your chance of getting Ranker if you really need that. I run 1 copy of Uncaged Menagerie. This is from the Hour of Devastation expansion, like maybe a year ago. But search your library for up to X creature cards with different names. Then that each have converted mana costs of X. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Now you do have to pay 2 green mana and then the cost, but honestly, that's fine because, again, like I said, the highest mana cost in here is 3. So you won't really need to pay. The most you'll have to pay is 5. Okay, that's 5 converted. That's honestly not that bad. To get 3 Leatherback Baloths into your hand, and obviously if you're paying 5 mana, you'll have enough to play them next turn, or maybe even this turn if you have 8 mana out. Next, I play Sundering Growth. Now, we don't have any tokens in here, so the populate is kind of useless, but the destroy target artifact or enchantment is what we're really getting at in this. So we're kind of moving into the enchantment and artifact defense here. But hey, if you're playing against an Eldrazi deck and you have an Eldrazi Scion on your side of the field, you can potentially get 2 extra colorless mana instead of just 1. Now, next I'd run 2 Natural State. A lot of enchantments or artifacts you'll see have converted mana costs of 3 or less. So honestly, you don't have to worry about the mana cost. I know it sounds really low, but just with my experience, it honestly works really good. And then let's say that there's a 4 converted mana cost that's really getting on your nerves. Just Unravel the Aether it, or maybe even Sundering Growth it. Okay, but Unravel the Aether, choose target artifact or enchantment. Its owner shuffles it into his or her library. Now, if you're playing against a commander deck with this, that's literally a 1 out of 100 chance to draw this card. But then again, maybe you're already far into the game, so you never know. I mean, that's gonna be like 1 out of 70 chance to draw it again. So that's very helpful. Next, I run another Rapid Vigor, just in case 1 isn't enough and you need to draw it. Then I run 2 Mutagenic Growth just to have 4 copies of Mutagenic Growth in your deck. Obviously, this is gonna be a big buffer to your creatures, so that's why I run it. Dismember. Target creature gets -5/-5 until the end of turn. Now you will have to pay 4 life with it, because we don't run black mana in here. But 4 life kind of hurts. But then again, if you honestly really do need this card, then you should use it. Okay. Now, Gut Shot, I have been debating about this thing for a while. To pay 2 life in order to deal 1 damage, that's... I don't know, but sometimes 1 damage is the difference between taking out a creature and not, so... It's kind of debatable right there. I'm trying to throw it back and forth. But finally, the card that I've been meaning to talk about, 4 copies of Bonds of Mortality. Now, the reason why I run this is because so many people are unprepared for hexproof and indestructibility. Okay, not many cards make people lose hexproof and indestructibility, but this one does. Especially for 2 mana cost and only 1 for activation cost. That is very amazing. Plus, this will also give you an extra green devotion for your aspect of the Hydra. So that is very good. Plus, when Bonds of Mortality enters the battlefield, draw a card. That's also very good because with my experience with the deck, your hand will get empty really fast since this is a really fast deck. So drawing a card is very important. Now you don't want to like get mulliganed by like a Jace mill deck, but drawing 1 card, that's all. That's very good. So other than that, this is my mono green aggro deck for 2018. All right, guys, leave a like if you guys enjoyed and subscribe to see more content from this channel. And as always, peace out.